Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to this webinar with Colibri Garden. Welcoming everybody who's here live and saying hello to everybody who's watching the recording as well. Today we have a really interesting webinar with David Londoño. We're going to talk about when things go wrong after ayahuasca. So of course, ayahuasca has many but profound benefits, and it's changed a lot of people's lives and had a huge impact. But in this webinar, we're going to talk about the potential risks, the potential things that can go wrong with ayahuasca when proper care is not taken. As we all know, it's a very delicate medicine that requires a lot of care and intentionality. So just to introduce ourselves before we get started, my name is Mags. I'm head of integration at Colibri Garden. I'm a psychedelic journalist. I'm an integration coach, and I help to facilitate retreats at Colibri Garden as well. So at Colibri Garden, we host sacred medicine retreats and ceremonies in Colombia. We work directly with traditional healers and indigenous wisdom keepers, and we provide dedicated preparation and integration support to help you have transformative experiences. On the call today, we also have Ivailo, who's the founder of Colibri Garden. If you would like to introduce yourself, Ivailo.
Thanks, Max, and absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Ivailo. I like to share that I'm a student of the medicines. I started, participating in ceremonies, drinking ayahuasca about a little bit more than 8 years ago. And then in my process of, going deeper on this path, ended up coming here in Colombia, where the last 4.5 years we've been the last 6 years I've been studying with different elders. In the last 4.5 years, we've been organizing retreat ceremonies with Mags. We co-host retreats and ceremonies here in the area around Medellin. And just very happy to be here today on that call, very excited. I think it's a very important conversation, and we have someone special to share with us. So just really excited to learn myself and just to share that with everybody else. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ivailo. So yeah, as mentioned today, we have David Londoño. So David is a Colombian psychologist, psychotherapist, and integration specialist with 20 years of experience in traditional indigenous medicines. He lived in the Peruvian Amazon for 6 years as part of his training to deepen his knowledge of psychotherapy, traditional medicine, and the bridge between the two. He has worked in various contexts and cultures throughout his career in Colombia, Argentina, Peru, and Spain. And he's coordinated therapeutic teams in treatment centers that work with master plants and has trained staff in integration practices. As part of the ICES team, David is also an advisor of the support center that offers integration sessions to people from across the world who have challenging psychedelic experiences. He also teaches courses on integration, ethics, and safety in the therapeutic application of master plants in non-traditional contexts. And David also offers online therapy sessions to individuals from across the world. Welcome, David. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello to everyone, and thank you for the invitation. For me, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So to kick off this conversation, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey. How did you begin working with ancestral medicines, and how did this then intersect with your work as a psychologist?
Okay, thank you. English is not my native language, so please excuse my mistakes, and I will try to speak slow and with clarity, and perhaps I'm going to request your help during some moments. And I want to mention also that I really appreciate this effort that you are doing to share with the community the knowledge about how to work properly with ayahuasca in non-native context, because right now you can find a lot of knowledge and a lot of information about the benefits of ayahuasca, the therapeutic properties of ayahuasca, and the healing with ayahuasca, and so on and so forth, but there is not a lot of knowledge about how sometimes when there is no proper care and the right knowledge, ayahuasca can also create difficulties and problems in the participants. I celebrate this effort that you are doing around bringing this information to the community. And I want also to mention that I'm going to talk about the use of ayahuasca in non-native context, because when indigenous people are working with ayahuasca in traditional contexts, inter-communities, there are other kinds of ideas, other kind of processes, and other kind of um, rules that should be applied. Okay, so having said that, I come from a family that since I was very young taught me to respect and to honor and to appreciate the indigenous world. Both of my parents live with with an indigenous group in the Colombian Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta with the Arhuaco people. So I grew having a strong bond with the indigenous world. I studied psychology in Colombia, and while I was studying psychology in Colombia, I started to visit traditional healers in Colombia and to join ayahuasca ceremonies, especially with the Cofanes. The Cofanes are an indigenous ethnic group from Colombia that are well known because they are very good with ayahuasca. They have a lot of knowledge about ayahuasca. They are very good, like they call yajeseros in Colombia or ayahuasqueros in Peru, no? And while I was working with them and assisting into their ceremonies, I was impressed by the degree of healing, by the therapeutic movements, by the insights, by the self-knowledge, by the spiritual openness. It was a very amazing. And after I finished my studies in psychology, I moved to Argentina. I worked there with a healer trained in the Peruvian Amazonas. And someone told me, if you really want to learn more about working with master plans, you need to move to the source. And I thought that it was a very good piece of advice, and I moved to the Amazonas, and I lived there in a place that is called Tarapoto in the Peruvian Amazonas for 6 years, and I was dedicated to learn more about ayahuasca, plant medicine in general, and the intersection between psychology and ayahuasca. And I was working in a place that offers personal growth retreats for Westerns and rehab treatments for people that suffer from addiction with a combination of psychotherapy and ayahuasca and or traditional plants. And while I was there in the Peruvian Amazonas, I was impressed by the healing and the depthness of that knowledge. But I also was impressed because because often people get harmed. Often people have difficulties. Often people have crises. And I was impressed also because some people try ayahuasca for years, 10 years, 15 years, and they don't receive healing about a specific aspect of their lives. They just keep drinking and drinking and drinking. And other people indeed were getting worse after using ayahuasca, particularly about some conditions. So I started to pay a lot of attention to that. I started to pay a lot of attention to safety, and I realized that psychology and psychotherapy has a lot to an important contribution in the sense of preventing these problems, addressing these problems and these crises when they appear, and helping people to integrate into their regular lives what ayahuasca show during the ceremonies. So again, I was experiencing this intersection between the plant world, the ayahuasca world, and the psychotherapeutic world. And after I finished my period in Peru, I joined ICERS, and with a coworker that is called Jerónimo Mazarraza, we start to offer this training aimed to help ayahuasca guides to improve their practices around safety. So we talk and work with people from the scientific world, we talk with facilitators, with participants, with psychiatrists, with psychologists, in order to collect the best practices around safety. And in order to learn more about safety, we need to explore a lot on safety and difficulties and problems. And we have been doing this for already 3 years. And I keep working with this intersection between psychology, psychotherapy, and ayahuasca in the context of traditional work. Yes, this is like to summarize 20 years in 5 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And that's how, I came to know about you and Jerónimo is through that course, which I found to be so comprehensive and just really addressing all of the different aspects of what leads to healing with ayahuasca and what it means to have a safe experience of what it means to be responsible when we're working with this medicine. So yeah, I'm so grateful for that experience, and I really took a lot away from it. We'll share the link if anybody. I know you still have some applications are still open for this year. So later on, if anyone who's on the call is interested in that course, we'll share the link in the chat. And before I move on to the next question, I also wanted to just mention if people have questions for David, we are going to leave some time at the end for Q&A. But it would be helpful if you could just take a note of them and then send them in the chat later on so that we can kind of have them organized, or, you'll have opportunity to raise your hand and ask them directly as well. So David, you currently advise the ICER Support Center. As you mentioned, you have a lot of experience working directly with people as they're going through a process with ayahuasca. From all of this, 20 years of experience that you've had, what are the most common types of problems that you see in people post ayahuasca?
Yes, this is a very good question. So I think that we can divide the problems in mental health problems or psychological problems, energetic problems, and problems related with something that we can call illusions around the messages that come from the ayahuasca experience. And often these different groups of problems are intertwined and connected. But to explore them a little bit, I'm going to divide them into different groups. So in the first group, we have what we can call mental health problems. What does it mean? It means that sometimes after the ceremony, people can end up feeling anxiety, can end up feeling fear, anguish, sometimes can end up feeling having panic attacks. Sometimes people after ceremony can end up feeling more depression. Sometimes people experience something that we call dissociation, and dissociation means some degree of disconnection with your own body, with your own mind, with the context. Sometimes people experience something that is called re-traumatization, which with re-traumatization means that you visit a traumatic event of your life, but the visit is not therapeutic, and you end feeling worse than before. No, it's like to have a wound that gets deepened. No. Sometimes people experience something that is called ego inflation, and we are going to talk about more later. And often also I work with people that experience a big disappointment. Why? Because right now it's very trendy to find celebrities in YouTube talking about how ayahuasca in one night shift everything, no? One night was the same as 10 years of psychotherapy. One night was the same as 10 years of meditation. So ayahuasca is portrayed as some sort of shortcut to healing, shortcut to wisdom, shortcut to spirituality. And people sometimes no try ayahuasca expecting that in one night they are going to get rid of all of their problems and to find peace and clarity. And this is very common. And 99% of the times that does not happen. Ayahuasca is work and implies a lot of commitment and a lot of effort and often is long time work if you want to have real changes in your life. And when people try ayahuasca without knowing that in advance, they can end feeling a lot of disappointment. And often people end up feeling anger and confusion and thinking that they did something wrong. And for that reason, the big change is not happening. And this is also quite common and brings, I mention it because brings suffering. And there are other types of problems around something that we can call suggestibility, because in the states that ayahuasca facilitate, we can end up being very susceptible to receive influences from others, and this is a whole constellation, no, of things that can arise because of that. And then, besides of that, we have different kinds of energetic problems, and we are going to mention and to talk about it more later. So, and to mention the other group is related with illusions. And illusions means in this context that people receive messages from ayahuasca, and sometimes these messages can be very useful and very positive and very constructive, but sometimes these messages can be problematic, can be can bring people to difficult places. So we have these three big groups of problems: mental health problems, problems around illusions, and we have problems around the energetic management of the around ayahuasca. So those are the big categories.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for laying all of that out for us. I think, yeah, what you're saying is just so relevant around the time and energy investment that's required to experience real healing with ayahuasca. And I'm really happy that, like, I actually today just saw an article that somebody wrote on the problem with 10 years of therapy in one night. So like a whole article addressing, I haven't like properly read through it yet, but the whole this idea that it's kind of become a little bit of a catchphrase with ayahuasca, like 10 years of therapy in one night. But like you're saying, the reality is that those are two very different things. And we've also, you know, experienced it as well with people saying, oh, nothing changed after I drank ayahuasca. And then the question is, well, did you change anything? Or were you just expecting like this to be a magic pill that you take and then, you know, the next morning everything in your life is resolved? So yeah, thank you for calling attention to that. And with these different kind of, you know, this different spectrum of problems that you're describing, what are the main reasons that people experience these issues after ayahuasca?
Yes, it is kind of complex, but I think that we need to consider that ayahuasca is not good for everyone, no? And there are some mental health problems and there are some physical health problems that can be dangerous, to try ayahuasca if you have this kind of one of these difficulties, one of these problems. So we can think about the 3 different phases for ayahuasca: before of the ceremony, during the ceremony, and after the ceremony. Before of the ceremony, like ayahuasca is not for everyone, and you need to be sure that you have the proper conditions that are required to try ayahuasca. It is necessary to have some sort of a screening. And often people facilitate ayahuasca without screening, and that implies a risk. So if you try ayahuasca without the proper preparation, then you can be in a position of risk. Then we have the work during the night, and the work during the night is really complex. In order to really guide well an ayahuasca ceremony, an indigenous healer can train for 15 years, for 20 years, sometimes even more, because the ayahuasca work implies a very complex energetic work during the night. And nowadays we have people uh, studying how to lead ayahuasca ceremonies in 3 months, in 6 months, and just getting a diploma and starting to facilitate. So that is the source of many problems that may arise during ayahuasca. This lack of training of the guide that impact his ability to hold properly the space during the night, no, for the participants. And then we have the third phase, and the third phase comes after the ceremony ends, and is the integration. And integration means that you need to integrate, like the word says, what you receive in the night in your normal state of consciousness, no? You need to integrate into your regular life the messages, the insights, the information, the memories that arrive during the night. And that requires also work again, no? And a very specific kind of work and a very specific kind of knowledge. So without proper care in these 3 phases, we can develop different kinds of problems that I already mentioned. So as you see, it is a serious matter, and indigenous people are teaching and talking about this for years, but our society is very young in the relationship with ayahuasca. Indigenous people have been drinking ayahuasca and studying ayahuasca and working with ayahuasca for thousands of years. And our society is like a baby in the relationship with ayahuasca, and we think that we can just teach ourselves how to do it, and that nothing is going to happen. And it's not like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It reminds me, a friend of mine who he might actually be watching this recording, but he just wrote an article for a Substack that I write for, and it was talking about this theme of just kind of the tendencies of New Age spiritual culture to want everything, you know, in, like you said, like in a 3-month shamanic training course, and then people think they're able to serve the medicine. And he told me that something he's heard from one of his elders or from like a community that he's been in is the concept of taita soni, like instead of, you know, like actual medicine music and icaros and like live songs during a ceremony, people are just switching on a speaker and playing a Spotify playlist during an ayahuasca ceremony. And I just thought it was so funny that he referred to it as taita soni. But yeah, that was yeah, I think that's just kind of like encapsulates perfectly this issue of a lack of knowledge of how, you know, these ceremonies truly work. So when it comes to the integration period, I know many times when we drink the medicine, we have an afterglow and we leave the ceremony and we feel very energized, you know, we feel very clear. We feel a lot of peace. And then sometimes we leave ceremonies and we can actually feel more depressed, more anxious, more confused, about maybe what has happened. Ultimately, I think these challenging integration periods can be beneficial depending on how we navigate them. Is there anything that you would suggest people do, or yeah, like how would you suggest that people navigate a challenging integration period where they feel like, oh my goodness, I got worse, not better?
Yeah, this is interesting because often in ayahuasca groups, there is a common belief, and the common belief is that you get worse before you get better, no? And in different traditional medicine, there is this concept of therapeutic crisis, which means that sometimes before of receiving the healing, you need to go deeper into your problems, no? And ayahuasca and other plant medicine work until some degree amplifying the content that you already have. So that means that if you feel anger, maybe during the night you are going to feel a lot of anger. Or if you have some fears in your life, maybe during the night you are going to really be confronted with a lot of fear and can be very intense. And through that mechanism, ayahuasca bring to the surface content and show us the content and confront us with that content so we can become more conscious and we can do something about it, because if we are not familiar and we don't know what we have inside, how we can make any change, no? So that's part of the what we call the amplification, no? And other times while ayahuasca is working on something, you can feel more for instance, a particular wound or a particular emotion. Ayahuasca is working on your sadness, and you feel very sad not because of the amplification, but because the plant is doing her work there. But it is temporal, and after some time, you feel better indeed. But other times, people get worse not because a therapeutic crisis or because the plan was working on a specific manner and you are going to be okay afterwards, but people get worse because something went wrong. Something went wrong in the preparation, something went wrong in the screening, something went wrong during the night in terms of the energetic holding of the ceremony, something went wrong because the integration process was not really well done. And this is another kind of situation that need to be addressed differently, no? Because it is a therapeutic crisis, but you are going to be okay. But sometimes it's not therapeutic; it's a problematic crisis. And in those cases, is important to talk with a person that has experience and knowledge about this status and that can guide you to a proper to addressing properly the condition.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, the support is just it's so crucial. It's something that, yeah, I've really learned a lot on this path. Just personally for me, the first ceremonies that I started going to here in Colombia were public ceremonies. So no intake, no health questionnaire, nothing like that. You would kind of just show up and, drink the medicine and the next morning leave and that's that. And, I think it's great that it's so accessible for many people in Colombia. Like a lot of people here, they don't have hundreds or thousands of dollars to spend on a retreat. But what I noticed in those experiences is I just didn't have any framework to understand what was happening. I had a friend who was experienced, a little bit more experienced than the rest of us, and she was kind of guiding us through. But post ceremony, it was kind of just, yeah, do some meditation or do some journaling, but I didn't really have anybody who deeply understood. And it wasn't until I went to a ceremony actually with Colibri Garden where we had the preparation support of like discussing intentions, forming intentions, meeting as a group, and then on the other side, the integration support of sharing about our experiences and, exploring how we're actually going to take them and then turn them into changes that we want to make in our lives going forward. And having an ongoing community was just really critical for me, with some of those, and still is, with my medicine journey, but especially in those earlier experiences. So I want to now move on to this phenomenon of ayahuasca told me. And I love how much you and Geronimo are talking about this, because I think it's really something that a lot of people that are not even questioning. So, during ceremonies, we often get the feeling that the medicine is telling us something. It could be something very simple. Sometimes I get messages in ceremonies that are like very random things, like, oh, send this person a text message, or, you got to just very small things. But then sometimes we can receive very big, important messages, breaking up with a partner, quitting your job, training to become a shaman, medical decisions or whatever. So, yeah, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about the risks of taking the messages that come through in ceremonies too literally.
Yes, it is a very interesting subject for me also. Um, there is like a common narrative in the people that are going to drink ayahuasca, and the narrative is that you are going to drink ayahuasca and that you are going to receive orientation about your life, or that you are going to receive some sort of message either from the plant, or from angels, or from spiritual guides, or from some sort of superior intelligence, and that you are going to use this intelligence to fix your problems, or get rid of your difficulties, or to orient your life essentially, no? And what is complex and tricky about it is that sometimes the messages that we receive during the night come from uh, uh, you know a wise place, no, that we can follow and that we can trust. Be either the ayahuasca, or an aspect of ourselves that is really wise. But sometimes the messages that we get during the ayahuasca ceremonies can come also from other places. Sometimes what we hear and what we connect with is not our best wise, intelligent aspect, but sometimes what it is expressed through these messages is, for instance, our fear, or our ambition, or our own wishful thinking, or our own biases, or our own blind spots, no? But what is really complicated about it is that when the message appear like a message, appear like something that comes from the outside, and appears with a lot of strength and with a lot of certainty. And if you don't know that what you are going to hear, or what you are going to see, can be a good orientation, but can be used just an expression of your own shadow, of your own ego, of your own blind, how do you call them, blind spots, no?
Yeah, blind spots.
Blind spots. Then you can follow these messages and give credit to these messages. And I have seen people having divorces, getting married, investing a lot of money in particular business, starting medical treatments, stopping medical treatments, and after some time realizing that it was a huge mistake. It was a product not of the wise intelligence of themselves or of the plant, but something else. Something else was giving them the message. So it is a complex area around this altered state of consciousness. And different traditions, not just shamanic traditions, but traditions around altered state of consciousness, like in meditation, like in yoga, and in different cultures of the world, work with the idea that you need to develop a lot of discernment in order to understand and to make sense of the messages that you receive when you are in altered state of consciousness. And that is a whole work, and that requires a lot of knowledge. Maybe we can talk more about it later. But yes, it's very important to take these messages with a grain of salt. And we often recommend to people to take some time before making any important change in their lives that can affect themselves or the people that they care about. And also, we recommend to people to talk with someone about it, to avoid being self-referential. Because if I talk only with myself about the message that I receive, for instance, well, I'm going to receive feedback only from myself. And that means that blind spot, biases, and all sort of distortions can appear without an external source to let me know that maybe it's not a good direction, or maybe yes, or maybe I need to adjust something. So in that regard, it's essential to be able to share the content of the experience with someone, particularly for Western people, because we don't come from a culture that has a lot of knowledge about ayahuasca and about how to navigate ayahuasca, about how to deal with the information that we receive. And we either don't come from a culture that has a lot of you know, deep practices around self-knowledge. So in general, we don't know a lot about ourselves, and we don't know a lot about ayahuasca. And it is a tricky combination. So yes, that's what I can say about that.
Yeah, thank you. And how could we, if you have any more thoughts on how we can discern a message, either during the ceremony itself or afterwards, do you have any tips on how we can discern between a true message from the medicine and something that's a reflection maybe of our own ego?
Yes, it's very interesting, no? The question is very interesting because in many places, in many circles around ayahuasca, there is just some sort of idea that you need to surrender and to follow the ideas, the insights, or the instructions that you receive. And that can be sometimes very positive, but sometimes can be very dangerous. And it's very frustrating for someone when the person believes that is following a good direction and end up realizing that he or she was misguided by essentially his own psyche projected into the plant, no? Like put offside. So there is not a simple answer for the question, because in order to cultivate this discernment, we need to learn about ourselves. We need to learn about our own emotional dynamics. We need to learn about what motivates us. We need to learn about our own shadow. We need to learn about our own biases. We need a lot of self-knowledge, and self-knowledge requires time, methods, instruction, and so on and so forth. And at the same time, we need to learn a lot about ayahuasca and how ayahuasca works, and the mechanism of ayahuasca, and the relationship with ayahuasca, and the altered state of consciousness, and so on and so forth. So cultivate this discernment requires a lot of work, no? Like other aspects of these healing paths, no? The other day I was remembering that a traditional healer told someone after 15 years of working with him now you're starting to really, receive some sort of, you're doing something now, no? Yeah. That's quite the opposite of this concept of one healing in absolute healing in one night, no? Um, but it is at the same time very interesting, because if we approach it with the right attitude, we have a lot to learn, and that is a good news. That is good news. Um, so yes, that's what I can mention about it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting to reflect on, and what you said about the shadow work, to me, that seems like it would be something very important when we're discerning these messages, to understand what could be an element of our shadow. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And now, yeah, I'd love to talk about the ego inflation that you mentioned earlier. Again, it's something that I think there are starting to be some conversations around this that I'm witnessing in the plant medicine space, but it's something that, yeah, a lot of people, kind of have neglected to acknowledge that this is a real possibility. How do you see ego inflation manifesting as a result of ayahuasca use?
Yes, it's very interesting, because ego inflation essentially means that, ayahuasca is called not only a master plant, but a power plant, no? Which means that when you drink ayahuasca, often it's possible to feel a lot of power and to connect with a strong source of power. And people can end up feeling strength, wisdom, sharpness, clarity, a very good intuition, and so on and so forth. And what it is tricky is that our ego can get identified with those states. So your ego can start to think like, I am that. I am the state. And from that illusion, to have a sense of self-importance, and to start to think that you are superior, you are special, you have something that other people don't know, your healer is the best, and you are learning with him, and you are the chosen one. And then your ego start to grow and to grow and to grow. And sadly, that's the opposite of an spiritual journey. It's the opposite, no? It's the opposite way. And it's quite common. And in indigenous groups, and in traditional healers, I have seen often a practice around humility that we don't have, no? So I have seen different traditional healers doing a lot of work, regular work, day-to-day work, to keep themselves humble all of the time, because they know that this work has this dangerous side. And power can bring healing, power can bring transformation, power can be, if you use Vuelte power it is great. But as all of us know, power can bring corruption, power can bring shadow, power can be destructive. So that is the tricky side about it. And some traditional healers mention also that ayahuasca sometimes test people, and that sometimes part of the test of the ayahuasca is around this ego, and about keeping your ego somehow like, how do you say, domesticado, like,
You put in check, maybe.
yeah, like tamed, no?
Yeah,
Tamed.
tamed. Uh-huh.
Because otherwise, if you have some predisposition to narcissism, which is quite common in our society, no? Some predisposition to narcissism, and you start to have this status in which you feel powerful, intelligent, wise, and so on and so on. then you can end nurturing your own narcissism. And I have seen guides, very skillful guides, that end in a very narcissistic place after years and years and years of drinking ayahuasca. And that's not the idea. We can avoid it.
Yeah, and how do you suggest somebody who is looking to drink medicine detect those kinds of tendencies in a guide? Are there things that they can look out for?
Yeah, it's difficult because ego, in the way that we are talking about ego today, can be very tricky. And ego can hide behind an apparent humbleness, right? So sometimes people have an speech about being humble and being at service and being there for the others and you know what you have uh, behind is a huge ego, but now just look portraying himself as humble. So it is very complicated to identify that. Sometimes it's very obvious because you have a person that's very arrogant with a lot of self-importance, saying that he is the best and that he comes from the best place and that he's going to teach you and it's very clear, no, this arrogant style. But other times you need discernment again, no? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, it's something that we see a lot, but yeah, thank you. We can be a little bit more attentive to these things. So to finish up, before we move to Q&A, I want to address the energetic aspect of these problems that you referred to before. How does a lack of energetic control during ceremonies result in problems afterwards, and what can this look like?
Yes, for me, this is one of the most important subjects about ayahuasca, no? The energetic dimension of the work with ayahuasca. And often people it's not very popular, the subject, because often people don't believe on it. People think that it's just folklore, no? Or sometimes people think that people get scared about it, no? But again, in the indigenous world, the energetic work is essential, no? And if you really want to care a ceremony, you need to learn about the energetic work, no? And in the indigenous world, healers train a lot, extensively, in order to properly address these dimensions. So the essential idea is that when you drink ayahuasca, ayahuasca is going to open your body. It's going to open your psyche. It's going to open your spiritual or your energetic body. And through that openness, ayahuasca is going to penetrate deep down, is going to release the toxicity that all of us have inside of our own system, and is going to bring in positive energies, the positive energies of the plant and the positive energies that are called by the healer, no? Through the songs, prayings, and different therapeutic interventions. But it is like a surgery, no? So if you open a body during a surgery, but without the proper care and with the proper hygiene, the body can get, I don't know, how do you say that? Like,
Contaminated.
contaminated, thank you. Contaminated by the toxicity. So you can consider that, but in the context of ayahuasca work. If you are too open, psychologically, emotionally, energetically, and there is not proper care, you can end absorbing toxicity from the environment, no? And that's where the role of the trained facilitator is essential, no? Without proper care, you can also end up the ceremony without good closing. And you can go to your house or to wherever you live and stay porous and keep absorbing and interchanging your energy with others and with the environment that can bring different degrees of different kinds of problems, no, and of symptoms. You can, without the proper energetic care, you can develop something that the healers call a susto, which means like a strong fear that impacts your body and creates symptoms also. And you can also, while you are open, and there are different energies and different beings in the ceremonial space moving. Sometimes, if there is not proper care, these entities can be positive, but sometimes can be harmful. So if you don't know, you don't have the right protection, you can also get impacted by these forces that are there and that require a very skillful management. And if you get impacted, then you can develop different degrees of different types of symptoms, physical, psychological, and so on and so forth. So that's why, again, a very good guide is required to approach ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a delicate work. It's not for everyone, and not the leading of the ceremony is very special. Requires a very important amount of qualification, and we need to consider that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for drawing attention to this. You know, oftentimes in the ceremonies, the curanderos or the taitas, they'll perform energetic cleansings, and the way that the taita that we work with describes it is he's closing us back up energetically. You know, it's towards the end of the ceremony, maybe, you know, if we drink at like 9, 10 p.m., around 2 o'clock in the morning, he's performing the curación. And it's, yeah, the way he describes it is he's sealing us back up energetically so that when we go back out into the world, we're not as porous, like you described. So if somebody is experiencing problems related to energies or entities after a ceremony, what do you recommend they do to resolve or treat these problems?
Yes, again, sometimes you are experiencing one of these problems, and it is because actually something went wrong in that layer. But sometimes you think that you are experiencing an energetic imbalance, and maybe it's just your own mind. Maybe you just get scared about it and you are projecting your own fears into that, and you can end with struggling with something that is not real. It's just your own fantasy, no? Because these energetic layers are difficult to perceive, and to perceive them requires experience, training. So the recommendation would be to find a trustworthy healer with the proper training, with the proper traditional training, and to ask him for a diagnostic, and perhaps he's going to perform a particular intervention or a particular ceremony to help you with that. Or perhaps the person is going to tell you, no worries, nothing is going wrong, go back home. It's not about this, it's about something else. So in that case, again, an external person is required, because we should not be self-referential about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, David. Before we move to some Q&A, I know we're close to the end. We might go a little bit over time depending on questions. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, if they want to work with you, you know, in integration therapy, how can they do that?
If someone want to be in contact with me, you just can write me to my email. Maybe we can copy my email in the chat.
Yeah, there we go. And also, I'm going to post here the link to the ayahuasca safety training that you spoke about at the beginning, if anybody's interested. I believe applications are still open. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for David? Feel free to raise your hand with the raise hand function or drop it in the chat. Or did some questions come through whilst we were talking? Let me have a look. Okay, go ahead, Ibailo.
Yeah, I think we had one question in the chat. I wanted to share several things. First of all, like, wow, David, thank you so much. This was absolute quality. Thank you so very much for sharing, and I could just like connect with so many things that you shared with us, and just kind of like around your perspective and reflections on different situations and dynamics. And yeah, like I'd be super happy to welcome you here with us in Medellin, to come do Temascal, to come drink with our elder would be super nice. And also just to share some Mambe and Ambil and talk about all these amazing topics.
That would be amazing. That
Yeah.
would be amazing. I hope that I can meet you in person one day. That would be amazing.
Mhm. And something I wanted to say was just like I was making lots of notes as I was listening to you, and like something I wanted to say is because we talked about like how it's very important to take like certain measures, certain care, certain preparation for people to have the most of an experience with ayahuasca. And I just wanted to say that even if all the like preparations are taken, it's like the best place, like in terms of like attention, integrity of the elder, all the preparation, it still can be the most difficult day of your life. you know it doesn't mean that it's gonna save you or avoid you any potential like very tough experience. And then I feel like something that, and I wanted to hear what you think about that, because I feel that a big element of these ceremonies, like sweat lodge, vision quest, I think also ayahuasca, especially here in Colombia with the Diaje tradition, I feel like a big element of it is kind of like they teach us to, like step out of our comfort zone, like to kind of like get comfortable, feeling a lot of discomfort. And sometimes, and I feel like also that's kind of like the role of the shaman, no, of the elder of the ceremony, like the trickster, to invite you into that space where it's like reality is very different now. And sometimes when I talk to people who like potentially would come to retreat with us, or other therapists working in another context, for example in the States, like there's a lot of the clinical approach, I feel like really kind of like tries to not go as far, like in terms of like the discomfort, how much we step into discomfort. And I'm kind of like almost feeling like also related to this journey is like that understanding that the medicine doesn't come to just like let us purge this thing that we've been carrying, like there's something stuck and we need to let it out. But it's about taking this 100% responsibility of like everything in our life. So kind of like, where is the balance, do you feel, having worked like closely with elders, like, and knowing like from my perception from today's code, you seem to be quite like familiar with also like the scientific aspect and all these other like sets of considerations. So where do you feel like is the balance? Like sometimes I personally feel that maybe this clinical approach kind of like should maybe incorporate some more holistic elements, and kind of like at the same time like really try to invite people more into the discomfort. I'm not sure if I'm expressing very well, but where do you think is the balance between like the clinical and the more shamanic approach, and how they can inform each other?
If I understand well, another way to consider the question would be, what is the balance between too comfortable and too uncomfortable? Hmm? In the work with ayahuasca? Hmm?
Yeah,
Yes, is that correct?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And that also, and just another thing that I want to share, like for example, like when I speak to our elder, you know, like because people come and they drink, you know, like antidepressants, they're in a really tough spot, you know, like, and when I speak to our elder, how long do they have to like get off the medication? And he's like, oh, like 3 days, you know, like, and in some very like tough cases, people, you know, like even less time than that, they go and drink ayahuasca. And when I speak to someone from a Western kind of more like informed perspective, they say, oh, like several weeks, you know, like 3-4 weeks. And it's just like, it's just very different, you know, like, so that's also, I guess, part of it.
Yes, it is complex. It is complex. The answer is complex too. It is true, I think, that in our society in general, we are very prone to comfort, no? And we want, in general, easy answers, um, fast healing. Um, we want don't to have to work a lot, and you know, everything as sweet and as gentle as sometimes kind of infantile in a way, no? Like we want an external agent that come to us and that give us the answers fast and easy without too much commitment, and in that regard, sometimes we approach this work as childs, no? Uh, and one day I was talking with a traditional healer, a grandmother, and she told me, I don't understand Western people. Western people are too comfortable. You know, they are kind of, for them in general, no, we are more or less lazy in different ways, no. And well, we can understand that because we built a society that brings us a lot of comfort, but sometimes the comfort that our society provides us also in some regards weaken us, no? In the work with ayahuasca, sometimes you find people that approach the work in that way, and it's necessary to challenge that, to confront that, to let the person know that without a very serious investment of energy, time, and hard work and pushing hard, you are not going to find new territories. You are not going to find changes. You are not going to get rid of problems. You are not going to find clarity. Ayahuasca implies work, no? Implies work. But other times you find people that work too hard, also in our own culture. People that, are very severe with themselves, that are very, have a lot of um, hard discipline, and they need to work more and to work harder and to, yeah, like, thank you so much, like militant, no? And they are already suffering for too much hard work and too much discipline and too much severity with themselves. And if you take one of these person and you tell the person you need to work harder and you need to push harder and you need to, more commitment, you reinforce something that is already affecting and already harming the person. So often, for instance, in people that experience depression, you find this kind of self severity, no? Yeah, uh, harsh disciplinary talk is not enough. You need to try harder. So there is always a subtle line, no? A fine line between helping the person to challenge himself or herself more, but not too much, because for some people is too much. It's not good for some people. You know, in other words, while I was working, while I was working, some people were required to sit down during the ceremonies with the back really, vertical and, like in a fight, no? But really straight. Thank you. Thank you for the help with the English. But other people were advised to do the opposite, to lay down in the floor, to relax, to breathe down, and to forget about all of this pressure. And depend where you are, you need more of one or more of the other.
Thank you. That's so interesting what you say about the posture. That's definitely sparked something in me of I always try and stay sat up, but I think there's like an element there of control and fear around sometimes, when you lie down with the medicine, you actually go a lot deeper and you surrender a lot more and it can be more intense. So I think sometimes I use it as a mechanism to try and keep some control in the ceremonies. So super interesting. Jessica, please go ahead.
Okay, so when you said about closing you energetically after ceremony is done, like how can you tell? For background, I just came out of two ceremonies on the 18th and the 19th, and even though this was ayahuasca with a maestro from Peru rather than the aje that I did last time with a Colombian title, this time was a lot calmer and a lot more visions until ceremony 2, when she literally snapped my fingers. Like I had the physical sensation of her breaking my fingers, like bending them backwards and snapping them. And then ceremony was done, like the music gave me some relief, and then ceremony was done and everyone was okay to go eat and whatnot. And for me, it continued. And the very next day, I felt a lot of anxiety, and I was like driving in Zion National Park, like literally screaming in the car. There was just like so much pressure, and it just feels like something went wrong with ceremony 2 towards the end. Like, I know, you said you can pick up other people's energies. There was somebody next to me doing this, and in my head, I was like, don't throw your shit on me, please. Like, which is ridiculous. Obviously they're not throwing anything, but it was kind of like they were energetically purging and swiping themselves off. And it was as if it was like going on me. So how do I tell, short of going to Colombia and going to another ceremony, how can I tell if I'm closed up? And if I need to be closed up, can it happen remotely, energetically? You know what I mean?
Yes, thank you for your question, and thank you for what you share. Um, in order to have a good judgment about this, one needs to have a lot of experience with these situations, no? Because you just bring an example of something that is a perfect example, because right now we don't know if what you experienced was a result of content emerging, through the surface because of the ayahuasca, and content that was already there before and become kind of obvious because of the word of the ayahuasca, and you are just, you know, um, in contact with these streams of, I don't know, fear or anxiety, and it's natural and it's going to pass. We don't know if it is like a therapeutic crisis, or we don't know if it, like you mentioned, something went wrong during the ceremony or some sort of energetic closure was not properly done. And so, as I mentioned, this is a situation that requires some an external agent, no, an external person with experience about this, and perhaps we can connect this with another question in the chat because someone asked about one of the organizations that I work with that is called ICERS. ICERS has something that is called the ICERS Support Center. And in the ICERS Support Center, people that work with these kind of situations offer even up to free 5 free sessions to talk with someone that is an specialist on integration and that can help you with the discernment of the situation, can help you to make sense of the situation. Thank you for copying the link, is on the chat, and to understand better what would be the next good steps. So my recommendation is like to approach this with deepness and with attention that requires to write us, to send a message to us, and we will be there helping you as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. David, I want to be respectful of your time. I know we're a little bit over. We have still a couple of questions in the chat. Is it okay with
It is
you
okay,
if
yes.
Thank you so much. So Noemi asks, is it common for someone to fall into a burnout, including freeze states, after a series of ceremonies? And can the plants help heal this, or is this always a clear signal of an overload of deep work?
It is common for someone to fall into burnout, including freeze states after a series of ceremonies. And can the plants help heal this, or is this always a clear sign of an overload of deep work? This is a good question. On one hand, in some traditions, in some indigenous traditions, for instance, the participants to an ayahuasca ceremony don't drink ayahuasca. They just stay there, and only the healer drink ayahuasca. And through the help of the altered state of consciousness, the healer, find the diagnostic and find the proper intervention. In other traditions, people try ayahuasca only when they were experiencing some serious matters, no? And now, in our world, sometimes we try ayahuasca one night and the second and the next night and the next night and the next night, one after the other, big dose, without proper resting, without the proper integration. And for me, sometimes it is just business, the business of selling plant medicine to other people, and without taking into account the rhythm of the body, the rhythm of the mind, the rhythm of the energy, to properly integrate, process, digest the experience, because we need to integrate in different layers. So often the people that we work with in our center are people that drink too much, too fast, too often. So indeed, if we overstep our own boundaries, that we don't have to know about them, that should be the responsibility of the facilitator. If we overstep our own boundaries, we can develop some sort of burnout around the work with ayahuasca. But sometimes the burnout was already there, and ayahuasca just make more visible something that we were carrying previously. So again, discernment is required in order to know if what we are experiencing comes from our own life, from the past, from the ceremony, or from a mixture of both factors.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I
Yes.
think is important to remember. So Dominica is asking if you have a contact for a trusted healer. I'm not sure if that's something that you would be able to share. But yeah, that's one of her questions. And then the second question, how long does it typically take to integrate challenging or initially negative ayahuasca ceremony? before it begins to feel constructive or transformative on a personal and spiritual level?
It's a good question. Um, and you mentioned something that is important, because crisis can lead to growth and to healing, but crisis can lead to feeling worse. So, but crisis has this potential for change, no? After you overcome the risk, you can access the potential growth. And that's the positive side of the crisis. Crisis often bring to the surface something that was underneath, denied, repressed, numbed, um, overseen for sometimes years, and the crisis just forces you to be in contact with all of that, and at the same time give the opportunity to do something about it. Sometimes we change because we have a crisis, or we try a therapeutic method because we have a crisis. We often don't look for help without a previous crisis. So how long does it take to integrate a crisis and to feel stable or more organized again? Depend on the crisis. Some difficult experiences can be restructured, or can shift to a better place. You can shift to a better place in 5 minutes with just the proper words that bring the proper understanding of what's going on, and then you find a new direction and you feel better again. And I have seen this many times. And other crises require months of work, of profound work, and sometimes even when the crisis is too serious and bring too much content to the surface, you need to spend years of hard work in order to bring the change that you need in order to feel really well again. So yes.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. So Nailesh is asking if you offer preparation and integration support packages for people exploring healing through ayahuasca.
Yes, I work, I have a private practice around integration, work and preparation, and helping people with, you know, yeah, organizing their experiences and applying into the day-to-day life the content of their experiences. Either because sometimes people want to enrich their process, or because something was difficult and someone need to elaborate it more.
Awesome. And I see that you also wrote your email. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, it's there. And then just one final question here, which we'll take before closing up. So Anton says, so can the unclosed ceremony lead to negative consequences? Had a ceremony in Putumayo with the indigenous, which was never closed, e.g., never cleansed after it. It was a trusted taita, though, but my first time with him. And it led to some really dramatic and what now seem bad consequences in my relationship with my partner. We were together at the ceremony and zero problems before it. Now the relationship is about to fall apart. It's been 4 months.
Yes, yes. An unclosed ceremony can lead to negative consequence, of course. And the closing of the ceremony, sometimes it is spiritual and energetic, and sometimes it is has a psychological aspect, because you need to make sense of what you experience, to the symbolic aspects of the ceremony, and to the emotions that arise, and to the memories that you have, and to the intuition that you receive during the night, and to make sense of it is important. So it's not just about, and for me this has been an important aspect of my work, because we think that it's just about drinking the plant. And that's the first part. Yes, we need to drink the plant to look for good ayahuasca ceremonies and for good healers and for good context. But then we have what we do with our experience. Because we can have the most profound and therapeutic ayahuasca experience, but if we don't know how to take that into our day-to-day life, our mundane life, and to integrate that into our day-to-day life, is not going to be it's not going to bring us where we want to be, and the other way around too. Sometimes we can have experiences with not the most amazing healer or not the most amazing ayahuasca, but we work really carefully with how to bring the teachings from the night into our day-to-day life, we can have we can develop a big step forward. So in that way, our own world, our own culture has something to contribute to the work with ayahuasca, with the integration, like you are doing, and like many other people in the world are starting to realize that integration is an essential aspect of the work with master plans and with psychedelics in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then Bobby has just shared a article. I think I read this one before. Thank you for sharing that, Bobby. Okay, I think we can wrap things up there, David. Thank you so much. For anybody who would like to learn more about our work at Colibri Garden, I'm just going to paste here our website, our Instagram, and also my personal website and my Instagram if anybody would like to stay in touch with me as well. We have retreats with Yahe. We do 4-day Yahe retreats, the next one coming up at the end of June. And we also organize ceremonies with Sweat Lodge and Huachuma and Cambo. So we're here just outside of Medellin, Colombia. If anybody would like to visit us, and yeah, David, it would be so awesome if we were able to meet you in person, maybe drink some medicine one day together. That would be super cool. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to share your wisdom with us. It was extremely powerful. It was extremely insightful and a really important conversation that we had today. So just, yeah, really, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. And I wish everybody a beautiful rest of the day, evening, wherever you are. And yeah, that's it from us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to everyone, and thank you for the invitation. And it has been a pleasure and a very meaningful opportunity for me to be able to share this with all of you. So hope to meet you in person, and good day for everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, goodbye.